Port Richmond, we've done Petrides, we've done CSI McGowan. And now it is time for Chris Soriano to give his 2015 baseball predictions on the Curtis High School Baseball Warriors. Because as you know, Curtis baseball holds a very special place in their heart for me. All right, where do we begin with the Warriors? One kid that I saw last year pitch for Curtis pitched against Port Richmond, and he pitched against us, and I remember going to Coach Tommy Jessup with Port and saying, this kid has the ability. I don't know about next year because, again, he's still young. But come his junior and senior year, he will be the most dominant pitcher in Staten Island because he's that good with his stuff. And I'm talking about David York. Formica is counting on a big jump from him. He's a sophomore. And the Warriors had the lefty up as a freshman last season. And that's with Curtis with a JV team. So Formica liked him a lot to call him up and say, you know what, you're not even wasting your time on JV. You're doing varsity. And now, rightfully so, Coach Formica is counting on him as the ace of the staff, which is very fair. He's got 3 pitches. He's someone who is a gamer, looks like a bulldog, looks like he has a very intense competitive level. And for his age, and Formica said this, he's very polished. For a pitcher at his age, he's very polished. He's a big kid also, big frame. He took his lumps a little bit last season. But I think, and this is, some coaches get knocked for this. You call a freshman up. Oh, well, why do you have JV if you have a freshman coming up? Because there's certain players that, you know what, they have to, and it's not like York sat on the bench. York got playing time last season. So, because Curtis is undermanned as it is, we're getting players for the team. So, I thought it was a great move by Formica bringing this kid up, not even wasting him on JV. At times, especially against Port Richmond last season, the first game, this kid was dominant. And he showed that he belongs in varsity as an underclassman. I thought last year was good for him. He learned a lot. York will also play right field. And the Warriors will have some regular shuffling as their top pitchers are also being counted on this season as position players. You got Lacrosse is a 3-year starter for Curtis. Senior captain who will lead off and play center field when he's not following York in the pitching rotation. And this is a good quote from Formica. Here's Coach Formica on Lacrosse. Quote, he has quickness more than speed. He's not really a burner, but he's very heady. End quote. In baseball, one thing that people look for is quickness. Quickness. I know as a coach I do quickness. I'm not going to define you on quickness because listen, if you can't run, if you're not quick, but you can hit and play, I'll take you. But quickness is a big factor. And he has that. Grande moved all over the place last season. This year he'll play first and pitch. He's played 5 positions overall for Curtis, and he's moving over to first base this season. He'll do anything. And Formica had this nice little quote about him. Quote, he's the consummate team player, end quote. I know if I'm doing a team, if I'm managing, he's one of the first guys that I look to as a player because he will do anything you ask for. That's a team player. There's no believing in just me, believing in my stats. It's all about me. No. He's about Curtis Warriors baseball. He's about the team. And that's big. Lozada, up as a sophomore last season. He'll play shortstop. Good kid, nice hands. Very good at shortstop. Last year, he was Curtis's best player last year. Very good player. I think he was their best player last season. Very steady. He's patient at the plate. And he's another big kid for Famika, and he walks a lot. And after a tough season, as you know, they're in the AA division. This is the only thing that I will disagree with Famika here. Quote, this is Anthony Famika. Quote, this year we're playing for a little bit of respect. We're down in division and we want to prove we can compete at a high level in this division, end quote. I remember when they came out with this article in the advance that they were doing the realignment, and Famika was furious that they were down. Well, listen, you're down for a reason. You haven't been that good the last couple of years. That's why you're down. And someone tell Coach Famika that you lost to Port Richmond last season 14-0. You might want to, or 14-1, whatever it was. I know it was a mercy. And we were not good last season. So, and you were 2-16. 2-16. I doubt they're putting you in AAA division coming off a 2-16 season. So if that's what Famika wanted, which if you read the articles, that's what he wants. Stop. You're down because on paper, your win-loss record has not been good. I'm not saying that they haven't been competitive. I'm not saying that they don't have the drive and the heart and they come to play every day, which Curtis does. But they went by records. You have not had a good record last couple of years. You haven't. It's just fact. I think Famika will use that, though. And listen, he's entitled to it. He's going to use the, we don't belong in this division. It's us against the world. And he could do that. And that's going to pump him up. Even though they, record-wise, over the last couple of years, belong in that division. Now, if they play up to their, if Curtis plays up to their potential, and York actually is a true ace this year as a sophomore, and he pitches to the best of his ability and everything goes right, Curtis can go 11-5. Curtis can go 11-5. I'm gonna go. They can go anywhere from 8-8 to 10-6. They can go anywhere from, Curtis can go anywhere from 8-8 to 10-6. Because you don't have to worry about those big teams now. And that's kind of what I've done for, and in closing, Curtis was the last team that we did in the AA division for Staten Island. We're only doing Staten Island for the AA division. Curtis, to me, is a team that you don't want to play. Even if you're Tottenham Wagner, you don't want to play because you know what? Chances are you're going to go the whole 7, number one. Number two, you're going to know that you're in a fight. Curtis is scrappy, Curtis claws, and Curtis is one of the most fiery, passionate teams the last couple of years. Unfortunately, the wins have not come their way. Unfortunately. But I went the route of, now I could, Petrides, Port Richmond, and Curtis, I could see all three of them going anywhere from 8-8 to 10-6. And I'll tell you why. This is how I came up to it. I think Petrides, Curtis, Port will each split the 2-game series that they have with one another. So they'll be 3-3 for all those teams right off the bat. I think all three of those teams will sweep CSI because I don't think CSI is there yet with those teams. I think CSI can beat Lincoln. I think CSI can beat Lafayette. I think CSI can beat FDR. I think CSI can beat Grady. I don't think CSI can beat Port Richmond, Curtis, and Petrides. So now those three teams, after 8 games, they're 5-3. And all they need to do is win 3 more games and they're 8-8. Or they have 8 wins. So I think it's very easy for those 3 teams, Curtis, Port, Petrides, to go anywhere from 8-8 to 10-6, which is why I'm predicting that I could see them go either way. And what's going to hurt, and the reason why, before people bash me from CSI and the Dragons, how could you have us, you have them going anywhere from 8-8 to 10-6, whereas I respect, we're only getting a 4-12 season from you. Well, Curtis, Port Richmond, and Petrides last year, and the last couple of years, have gone through the rigors of playing the top teams in the PSAL. And I'm talking about Tottenham and Wagner. New Dorp has been solid. MSIT has been solid. And especially for players on all 3 of those teams that have 3-year varsity players, 4-year varsity players, they have seen a lot of Tottenville, Wagner, New Dorp, and MSIT. I can tell you, a couple years ago, Petrides was beating Wagner. Wagner was the one team that couldn't put away Petrides a couple years ago. I remember last year, Port holding tough with Curtis. Port holding tough with Tottenville. Only losing 7-3. I remember Curtis almost beating Tottenville. Curtis holding tough with Wagner. These teams held tough with the toughest of the tough. That's why this division should be a no-brainer for them, and they should compete. And I think all 3 of them can, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do, all 3 of those teams make the playoffs. Curtis, Port, Petrides, all 3 of them can make the playoffs. Would I be shocked if all 3 of them didn't? I'd be a little shocked if all 3 of them didn't make it. But I think they have what it takes to make it in this division. Because let's face it, you don't have to look at your calendar, and those 3 teams don't have to worry about 6 games against Tottenham and Wagner. Sprinkling 6 against New Dorp and MSIT. They don't have to worry about that. So I think from that standpoint, it's very good for them. And hey, Curtis Baseball, I actually picked you to do good this year. So don't let me down. Okay? I know the last couple of years on the radio shows on WSA Radio, I haven't been kind. Even when Curtis was coming off their 10-8 season, I have not been kind to Curtis in terms of picking them and previewing them, because I kind of always don't expect much from them in terms of win-losses. This year I do. This year they can have a very solid year and they can have a playoff year, and I think Curtis is a playoff team. In this new division, I think the Curtis Warriors, and I'll say it, and this is coming from a guy who, since 2005, has been part of the Port Richmond baseball program, and we know the Port and Curtis rivalry, and my God, I was trained as a freshman to hate you, Curtis Warriors. I was trained to hate you. But you were hearing it from Mr. Raider himself, and the always Curtis Warrior antagonist. The 2015 Curtis Warriors baseball team is a playoff team. How about that?